quite honest, when Danny asked me to come, I didn't know why. When Danny left my office, he said that they needed that conversation that we had with his staff and myself. And I gotta be honest, I needed the conversation that I heard today. So I wanna thank each and every one of you that spoke beforehand. Thank you for your courage. That takes a lot. Frank, when you say you didn't think you were supposed to be here, you're supposed to be here. We need you here. Brad, thank you for sharing. I know it's hard. I know we're about the same size. I'm trying to stand up. But thank you. I mean, that means a lot. Those words mean a lot. Cap, thank you. Thank you for those words. And honestly, I'm in Florida now, but I'm going to give you my information. Whatever help you need, I still know a lot of people in New Jersey. I'd be more than happy to help in any form of fashion I can. So the three questions that I had, and I always ask myself, is do you breathe it, do you live it, and do you mean it? Right? Do we breathe it, do we live it, and we mean it? And oftentimes I ask it of my officers, right? Because what we do is a calling. It really is. You have to love what we do. With all the negativity around us, you still come forward, you still put that uniform on and perform and do God's work. But after hearing everyone speak, and I have to tell you, my message is more for the leadership. For those that call themselves chiefs, directors, commissioners, anyone in that high position that wears the stars, let me remind them, those stars, they look good, but there's accountability that goes with those stars. It's not about yourself. It's not about, hey, I'm a great test taker, I promoted, I continue to move up the rank. With every rank, you're accountable to more and more people. And somewhere along the way, we as administrators forgot about the men and women that put that uniform on every day and do the work that we're no longer doing, but that is needed in the streets. So on behalf of administrators, I apologize for those that don't have the bravery to speak up and stand up for the officers. Commissioner Carrick said it, and you know, it's funny, and we have a story. He doesn't know it yet, but I have to talk to him about it. But it's a difficult time to be a police officer, right? And people say, I can't believe you're doing it at this time. And I say, it is the perfect time to be a police officer. Because the reality is, if not us, then who? And if not now, then when? We got on this job to make a difference. We got on this job to make this world a better place. And those of us that took that oath, we never forget that. Though the media has us doing everything else, they don't talk about the stories of going into buildings at 4 in the morning to get drugs off the street. They don't talk about saving lives. They don't talk about any of that. And that's our job as administrators, to make sure that we tell the story of what the men and women do. Because in all that noise, trust and believe, great work is being done by each and every one of you. So for that, I salute and I thank each and every one of you. Coming up in the North Police Department, one thing that I hated, and I have to say I despised, and I still hate it to this day, is I had bosses, and I'm sure we've all had it, that would say, Gus, read this book on leadership. Gus, read that book on leadership, right? And I'm that nerd that would read. And I'd read that book and I said, okay, great, right? Praise in public, right? And I'd say, wow, did you read the book? Because everything that you live by is nothing what I read in the book. And that was my motivator to become a boss. I never forgot the kid that I was when I was in the West Ward in the city of Newark, and I looked at leaders for leadership, and it was all about self and, you know, this or that. I said, wow, what about the men and women that come every day to work and put it on the line? It's not about you. People sit on TV. You know, I've been in press conferences, all that, that's great. Anyone who's ever worked for me, I had gangs and narcotics in the city of Newark from 2007 to 2010, and they'll tell you, I've always said, it's not about me. I can have all the strategies in the world and I have all the credentials, that's great. It means nothing. It doesn't mean a thing if I don't have the support of my men and women. It doesn't mean a thing. It's not gonna happen if they don't choose to go into those areas and do God's work. It doesn't happen. I don't care how smart you think you are. it means nothing without the men and women that put that uniform on. I gotta tell you, there's some people here from Patterson. Can you please stand up for a second? I know there's some officers from Patterson. I know Erica was here earlier. I want to thank Erica. November 7th, 2011, thank you. Also, Detective Michael Morgan was one of my officers who was killed in the line of duty in Patterson. Thank you for responding and the work that you all did. Thank you, I appreciate it. I will tell you, I was in the city of Newark until 2014, and I went to the Essex County Prosecutor's Office until 2018. I applied, and unfortunately, in Florida, Tukwesta, Florida, it's a small town, only 2 square miles, 6,600 residents. It's a completely different world than the environment in which I came from. But I have to tell you, I took a lot of lessons from the city of Newark, and it made me the person that I am, and for that I'm grateful. I'm not standing up here telling you all that we always got it right, because Lord knows we made mistakes. I'm not saying that we were perfect by any means, as I was part of that administration team. But one memory that really sticks with me, and I shared this with Danny, and I knew we had to do better. At some point, our director, we were going through some tough times as officers. We had lost some officers in the line of duty through suicide and other ways. He had cop to cop, and this is not speaking ill of cop to cop by any means. Anyone that does any work with police officers, I thank you. But we were ordered to go to communications, where they took attendance, and where they spoke to a group about 50 or 75. At the time, I'm deputy director, myself, Miles Wilson is the deputy director. And I remember saying, okay, we're being ordered, okay? We're gonna talk about our feelings in public, okay? All right, we have to go, there's a sign-in sheet, and they passed it around. And I remember I walked in and I said, it just doesn't feel right. I don't know about you all, but I think I know cops a little bit. I'm being ordered to, I got a sign-in sheet. I'm not sharing anything. That's just not the way we're built, right? We're not gonna share. So we sat there, like I said, I was in charge of gang and narcotics at the time, and if those of you who have done gang and narcotics, you know it's tough work. And I remember texting the guys back and forth, and they're talking. And I gotta be honest, and no disrespect to them, I didn't hear a word. It didn't resonate with me, because I felt that if I needed help, or if my men and women needed help, being ordered and signing a sign-in sheet wasn't the best way of doing it. Though the intention was good, the execution was horrible, right? Those are the moments that I think of when I got the opportunity to go to where I am now. But let me tell you where I am now. It doesn't mean that I want any of you to take my job, by the way. But it's places that you wouldn't believe. From day one, I have to tell you, I'm from New Jersey, I'm a Jersey kid. You know, politics plays a big part in everything we do, let's be honest. Let's never forget that. I knew no one when I applied for the job. It was 132 people who applied, and by the blessings of God, I got the job. So when I got the job, I said, hey, I want to do something different. You know, we've made a lot of mistakes along the way for our men and women, and we haven't done right by them. It's a small department, it's only 20 people. The city manager, that's who runs the city, phenomenal. He's a big supporter. His brother was a police officer. An HR director who has her doctorate, who is a rock star, who I lean on constantly and say, hey, hold me accountable of what I'm saying, am I doing? Because it's one thing for people to say, hey, do this, A, B, and C. It's another thing to actually do it and execute, right? I'm sure you've all had those leaders, hey, you know, I'm gonna do A, B, and C. And they might do it for a minute or two, and that's it, and they forget about it. So I have her holding me accountable. Like I said, I have 20 officers sworn, one office manager, executive assistant, and one critical incident stress manager. And Danny got an opportunity to meet him along with Shay and Ron. And I have to tell you, I tell him all the time how he's just like something we've never seen. He's 81 years young, and his name is Pastor Paul Beresford. And though we call him Pastor out of respect, he's long been retired. But I have never in my life met a more genuine, caring person. Not even close. When that man gets to know you, not even gets to know you, when he meets you, he will do anything for you. Oftentimes I'll walk in the morning, I'll come in with a smile, something's going on. Chief, did you see what happened? We lost another life, another suicide. What are we doing about it? What can we do better? We just can't let this go on. This man takes it to heart. Danny called him God's angel. And honestly, he's definitely a God's angel. But I'm going to tell you something, Danny. You're God's angel. Because what you're doing here and putting everyone together, thank you. I appreciate you. So the way we built the system, it's not going to happen overnight, I will tell you. For those leaders out there, do not make it political. It's not about politics. Pastor Paul is part of our staff, right? So he's part-time. But when you hear the word part-time, you think, hey, I can't call him at 2 in the morning. Nonsense. Though he doesn't get paid for those hours, that man is always on the phone, always helping someone regardless of the time. With us cops, and you know this, and correct me if I'm wrong, we just don't talk about things, right? That's just not how we do. I heard a lot of you, Bill, heard say, God forbid I say something, I'm going to the rubber gun squad. You know, that's an NYPD thing, and we talk about it in Newark, right? Or God forbid I say something and take my shield and badge. I can tell you, that is a lack of leadership from the top down. That is a lack of leadership from the top down. And if people are offended, oh well, then you know I'm talking to you. But the reality is, your men and women shouldn't feel like it's a death sentence. Your men and women shouldn't feel like it's not okay to be okay, right? So when we all go roll call in bigger departments, small departments, we do it informal. In Newark, we would stand up at roll call, salute the desk, and check, right? Gus, you have your gun? Yep, check. You have your badge? Check. You have your radio? Check. You think ever once they asked me, hey, you good? Anything going on at the house? No. Right? So our mental health never gets addressed at all at roll call. In our eyes, from the administration, oh, you got all your tools. What about your head? Is your head straight? Is everything good at home? Do you need anything that we can help you with? Do you need a night off? Do you need to talk to someone? We don't ever do that. And I got to tell you, from an administration standpoint, we're failing. But for those that are in sergeants, lieutenants, and captains, take care of your men and women. Because if your administration isn't doing it, you guys got to do it. You ladies have to do it. One of the first things I did with my officers is I actually had a PowerPoint, and we talked about some of the losses that I personally have gone through. You know, whether it be Detective Morgan, and I was just talking to Tony, was it? See, I remember Tony from Jersey Transit, about my undercover who came out and unfortunately was lost to suicide. I never had anyone to talk to about that. You know, I mean, it's one of those, as cops, we take it, we compartmentalize it, we don't talk about it, and we move on to the next job. I gotta tell you, and I think this is a perfect line. I don't know if you all ever been in a house of a hoarder, right? You go to a hoarder's house, in Newark we had one, and she put newspapers, and she always thought she heard something, and she had stacks and stacks in her house. If you think about this, and I don't say it as a badge of courage by any means, think about how many things we have seen, how many kids have died, how many deaths, how many timely deaths, untimely deaths, how many horrific scenes we have seen. That's what's called mental hoarding. Because you're taking that, you're putting it in your head, and we never decompress. We never talk about it. Because what do we do as cops? We're like, oh, no big deal. We might say, hey, we'll talk about it as partners. We don't open up to each other. I had a partner in the radio, we never talked about it. My wife, we never talked about it because I didn't want to bring that home to the wife. So where's that outlet? Where do we go to? Where do we turn? We don't, right? Unless we do something. The work that, Anna, you're doing, thank you. That is phenomenal. The fact that people want to help law enforcement, especially in today's day and age, with everything going on, all the negativity, thank you. That takes a lot of courage. Thank you so much. The program that I built isn't just saying, hey, we hired a critical incident stress manager. He's in the office. If you want to talk to him, talk to him. No, it's not how it works. First and foremost, leadership, like I said. I got up there and I said, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what I've seen, and this is what I'm going to discuss. I make it a point to have his office in my building, right? So we only have one station, one precinct, so they keep telling me it's a headquarters, it's a precinct in my head, right? But I make it a point to be there. In Florida, I've talked a few times and they said, oh, we have great psychologists off-site. We have other people, you know, that you can talk to where people won't see you. There's nothing to be ashamed about. Why is it that we gotta hide what we're going through? Absolutely not. Again, leadership needs to take the role and say, hey, I'll be the first one in Pastor Paul's office every morning. How you doing? And I do it strategically, right? And it's something small. I move the water cooler into his office, right? So guys at night, hey, girls want to grab a cup of coffee, whatever, here's the water cooler, here's the coffee machine, the only one in the whole station, right? So whether you realize it or not, here you go, you're grabbing a cup of coffee and you're talking to the pastor, because he has a phenomenal way of talking to you and getting through to you. There's some times where I just want to, I don't want to talk to anyone, you know, we all have those days. And I walk in there and he's like, Chief, you don't look well. You're yelling and screaming a little bit, which isn't outside of the norm, right? But I'm like, okay, yeah, you know, something's going on with my family, home life. We'll sit and talk about it. That 5-10 minute conversation, I can tell you, plays a big part in our long line of mental health. It really does. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't be saying it, I wouldn't be doing it, because I'm not that one of those persons, and Anna, you said it, I love it, because I turned to Ron and I told him this. Oftentimes leaders do things to put off on a checkbox, right? No offense, when we had to go to communications, check, now we could say, we as a department did something. Oh, something happened, oh well, you know, we're doing something. No, we're not. No, we're not. And don't kid yourself. And the minute that you think you're doing something by, hey, go talk to somebody and that's it, you should not be in that position of leadership, because you are by far what a leader is supposed to look like. When I had an officer who lost his mother, unfortunately, to a disease, first person he called for, he didn't call for Gus, he didn't call for anyone, he called for Pastor Paul. That man cried like a baby. Came in, Danny met him, Ron knows him, says, hey, I need to talk. Go. That's your loved one. The reality is, if we don't set that up and it doesn't start from leadership saying, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable, he doesn't feel that confidence. He doesn't feel like it's okay to say, hey, I'm not okay. I need some time off. That's what we have to build. That's the culture we have to build. But we have enough negativity on the outside. My daughter she's in high school, takes college classes. My daughter's an introvert, nothing like me at all. She's a lot like my wife, like my wife. My daughter's 16, I kill her. But honestly, she's upset, so she's an introvert, she doesn't express herself. And she's upset, she goes, you know, Dad, I can't get away from him. What's going on, Taz? She goes, online, the teacher is talking about anti-police. The students are talking about anti-police. And Dad, I'm scared to say my dad is a cop. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, wow, where have we come that my daughter's scared to say I'm a cop? We used to be loved, right? We used to be, oh my God, especially after 9/11, everything, all the men and women that did in New York. You know, I remember in Newark, it was so surreal. Just, we were guarding University Hospital, I think it's Rutgers now. And me and my partner just in the car, I'm like, I can't believe they're clapping for us. Like, you know, this doesn't happen in Newark. We've come so far on the negative. And part of that is, we've allowed the few individuals that tarnish that badge speak for us, right? So when Commissioner Kerrick gets up there and talks, I love that. Give me a mic. If you ever hear me, same thing like I said when I was in Newark, or if I'm in Florida, I talk about all the positive things, because those don't get talked about, right? Those things don't get talked about. The fact that we got an ATV, went through the woods and saved someone and brought him home, that doesn't get talked about. Someone's holding a gun to his daughter. We go in there, we end up arresting him. He gets 9.5 years because he was on the Sarah watch list. That doesn't get talked about. I make it a point as a leader, oh, we're going to talk about it. I call the news and I say, hey, I want to talk about this, right? Because you start seeing these stories, and you're right, it's hard to get away from it. And you know, we say we can't watch the news, but let's be honest, it's all over the place. Social media is just we're not going to be able to escape it. So if we can't escape it, what do? We have to talk about the good stories. We got to talk about the positive things that we do, which, by the way, far outweigh the handful of individuals that wear this badge. And let's be honest, and you all know that's true. So with Pastor Paul, we make them available to other police departments, right? So I recently got put into the secretary position for the Palm Beach County Chiefs Association in Florida. And I said, Pastor, your work is just beginning, because we're going to start spreading the message throughout the county. So one of the things is I spoke to the other chiefs. And I said, hey, he's here. If you ladies want him, he's more than happy to come and speak. And I got to tell you, tonight was eye-opening. It was honestly humbling. But that day, when I had Pastor Paul speak to Jupiter and Lake Colony, and this department is small, it's only got 5 full-timers and a bunch of old-timers, and work part-time. And Pastor Paul's telling the story about an officer who came to his house about 2 or 3 in the morning and said, I'm scared of dying, right? I'm having these horrible thoughts and I just can't take it anymore. And Pastor Paul brought him in and he prayed with him and he talked to him. He's relaying this to a group like this, right? Probably just like 15 or 20 officers, and I'm there as his support. And I couldn't be prouder when I had an officer in the back, old timer, raise his hand and said, hey, I was that officer. I'm that officer that Pastor Paul spoke to, and you saved my life. Thank you. I gotta tell you, from our perspective, that's highly unusual, right? It was so sobering and so just humbling to watch an officer that's been around say, that was me. There's no shame in it. That's what we need to do. Brad said, you got 150 messages. There's a lot more than that. And I would have told you, if you'd have been in Florida, we'd have taken care of you in Florida. Ain't that right, Ron? Because blue is blue, and that is it. We take care of each other. When others won't, we got each other's back. And that's the way we gotta live and be. That's just the reality. The last thing I just want to leave you all with, and again, Danny, thank you for having me. I honestly don't even feel worthy enough to be on the stage because for you all to open up, it says a lot. For those leaders that are out there, and your heart's not in it, and you're not about the men and women, and you think it's about ego, do us all a favor, do your men and women a favor, step to the side. Because trust and believe, there's hundreds of people like me, like you all, that don't forget where they come from and will do right by the men and women. The last thing I want to leave you with, to those leaders, you must breathe it, you must live it, and you must mean it. This is not something that you can put up on the wall. This is not something that say, oh, our vision statement or anything. Real is real. And if you ain't real, let's be honest. Us house, we got a bullshit meter. We know what's what. So I pray for each and every one of you. Thank you for having me and continue to be safe.